Hey guys, back with another video, review impressions video again on this game, The Evil Within, for the Xbox One. No, I did not buy an Xbox One. This is my brother's copy. My brother owns an Xbox One, and this was a game I was really interested in playing, but I don't own a next-gen system. I could have played it on PC, but I figured, I can just borrow the game and play it. A game that I was I was unsure about going in, especially after seeing. Well, not that I really care about reviews too much, but the reviews for this game have been pretty polarizing. They've mostly been positive, but there's been quite a few negatives out there, and there's been a few people I know that have been kind of disappointed with this game. You know, going in, I think obviously this game, Shinji Mikami, he directed this game. It was supposed to be a game that returned to survival horror roots. Obviously, Mikami is known for amazing games like Resident Evil 4, the original Resident Evil, God Hand, Vanquish, a bunch of great games. And I'm a huge fan of Resident Evil 4, and not so much other Resident Evil games, but definitely Resident Evil 4. I loved this game. I actually really enjoy this game, and a big reason for that is because this game feels like Resident Evil 4 in a lot of ways to me. It's got some parts that feel like Resident Evil 5 and 6, which I wasn't too big on those two games. Although, well, Resident Evil 5 was pretty decent, but this is really what I think Resident Evil 5 should have been. There are some disappointing aspects to this game, I won't lie. The story, which I'll talk about right off the bat, I found it to completely be pretty shitty. I wasn't expecting an amazing story going in. I mean, Resident Evil 4, as much as I love that game, the story, I don't like the story in Resident Evil 4. So I really wasn't expecting great things from the story, which is a shame because I think the actual concept is interesting, where you're a detective, Sebastian Castellanos, and you get a call to this mental hospital where a slaughter has happened. Plenty of dead bodies when you arrive, and almost right off the bat you get knocked unconscious by this mysterious hooded figure, and you wake up to find yourself in this nightmare realm kind of deal, where there's just monsters roaming around, and you're going from crazy environment to crazy environment, like hallucinations start happening, some really crazy shit goes down, and it feels like a Silent Hill game in that way, where there's just a ton of crazy like visions that you'll receive, like walls will, like, blood will start running down from walls, you'll get like gross gooey masses like flowing through the walls. Like, there's really striking gory imagery in this game, and I think that's where like the Silent Hill stuff kind of comes in, where it reminded me of Silent Hill a bit. But the story in this game is so confusing. The way they tell it, where there's some cutscenes with dialogue and character interactions. Two of the other main characters are fellow cops, Kidman, the female detective, and then Joseph, like the glasses wearing, kind of nerdy, a bit nerdy detective. They've got some relatively interesting backstories. I mean, you can find like notes throughout the game that kind of give you a bit of detail on like the characters, especially Sebastian, which those I found kind of interesting. But the main story itself, it's very poor at explaining itself. You're going from area to area. And it's almost like the story's almost presented in a way where it's all a bunch of pieces that you kind of have to put together yourself. It's very confusing the way that the dialogue is presented and the situations you find yourself in. It starts to make a bit more sense towards the end, but even the ending is kind of disappointing in a way. Like, I had to go online to see what the hell exactly the story was about, and even hearing some of the theories, especially one on YouTube that seemed pretty reasonable. I don't know, this game also goes into a lot of it goes into the supernatural territory way too often for my tastes, which I'm not too big on. So yeah, I gotta say, I think the story is a bit of a mess. It's a lot of it is very incoherent, and I think the main character, Sebastian, there's some interesting stuff to him, but at the same time there's not, I don't want to spoil some of the stuff, but there's a lot of cliche stuff in this in the story. So the story was kind of a letdown, but at the same time, I didn't expect it to be amazing. And why I loved this game was for the gameplay. The gameplay I think is fantastic. There's some pacing issues. There's some tedious bits. There's some cheap one-hit deaths. There's some uneven stuff in the game, but on the whole, I really enjoyed it. You know, it's your standard kind of, like, you know, it's billed as a survival horror game, but I'd actually call it a survival action game, similar to Resident Evil 4. I don't think the game's really scary, but it's very tense. Your character dies very quickly, and I died 86 times playing this game. It's a tough game. You have to, like, ammo is very scarce. You really, every bullet in this game counts. And it's your standard third-person shooter where, you know, hold L and you aim your gun. And you really have to be precise with your aiming. In terms of, you know, there's, like I said before, there's a bunch of different environments you might go through, from like a village that seems like a throwback to Resident Evil 4. There's a mansion segment that's really cool. I love the environment variety. And you're you know, basically killing enemies. There's some set-piece moments. There's some psychological moments similar to like Silent Hill. There's some slow moments too. It's not just all action. There's some definitely slow, more horror moments that I appreciated, because the action's very tense in this game, because you can die almost at any time. You really have to be cautious with this game. Exploring helps out a lot, because you're always going to be wanting to search for ammo and goo, which is kind of like the stuff you use to upgrade your character. Which I love the upgrade system, where you kind of go to like a hub world every now and then by looking at a mirror. So you can upgrade your character there with this goo stuff, where you can kind of upgrade your weapon's accuracy, damage, fire rate. You can upgrade your main character's health, your sprint meter, things like that. Your health syringes, how many you have, how much ammo you can pick up for your guns. And these upgrades felt really meaningful. It felt great upgrading your character, because I noticed right off the bat, upgrading my pistol, my handgun accuracy from like level 1 to level 2. I noticed that quite heavily. So it's always fun going to the upgrade area and you know, picking and choosing what you want. And you're definitely not going to have all the upgrades by the end of the game. New Game Plus is where I think it'll probably take up to like 3 New Game Plus playthroughs to get a fully upgraded character. But the game also has this really awesome like implementation of traps. There's like tripwires that you got to be careful of. You got to crouch down and kind of disarm them. But and those will kill you really fast, like 1 or 2 hits, especially if you're low on health. But the cool thing is you can use those to your advantage as well by not disarming them. It gives you, like, if you disarm them, it gives you like materials you can use to craft bow ammo. For your Agony crossbow, which is a really fun weapon. There's like freeze bolts and explosive arrows for that. Other weapons, there's like a shotgun, pistol, sniper rifle, magnum, a good selection of weapons. But these traps, you can like lure enemies to these traps by like throwing a empty bottle that you might find in the environment. There's stealth kills where you can sneak up behind certain enemies and you know, perform a one-hit kill. There's more traps too, like explosive traps, and the way the level designs work with these traps is excellent. There's some really cool encounters you run into in some boss battles that you have to make use of these traps in. There's matches. I love this mechanic where you can light bodies on fire, which is sometimes a good thing to do if, like, a good thing for me I found was to shoot an enemy in the leg with 1 pistol bullet, then use a match to burn their body, conserving some handgun ammo. You could also, say, have 2 dead bodies on the ground and a zombie's coming towards you, and just as he walks over these dead bodies, you can light a match down and they'll all light on fire, killing the enemy just using a single match. The ways to kill enemies in this game, it was just always satisfying. There was always a way to do things to take care of these enemies. And not only that, the actual shooting in this game is so fucking satisfying. Like, pulling off headshots in this game gave me that same satisfaction that I got from Resident Evil 4. Like, the effects are really gory, the guns feel great, they feel powerful. Just the simple act of shooting monsters in this game was fantastic. Like, it never got old. Like, combat was always fun. I love the enemy variety. I mean, some of the enemies are kind of generic, but at the same time, there's some enemies that are really inventive. And some really cool boss battles that... I like the boss battles in this game. There's a few annoying ones, but I don't really want to spoil what the boss battles are. The final boss, I think, feels kind of rushed. And some of the chapters I like better than others. I mean, I think off the bat, like Chapter 15, the very last chapter in the game, was one of my least favorites. There's even some puzzle solving, but it's very light puzzle solving. It's not really obtuse, annoying puzzles. They're very simple, and they're nice, where it's kind of like a nice break from the action. But this game, I was on edge the whole time because, death just happens so frequently. And, the game does resort to some one-hit kills at times, and that can be frustrating. Some of the checkpoints are a bit long. The game definitely had its frustrating moments. And, the pacing, and it's uneven at times. And there is a bit of jank. I mean, I guess talking about the graphics now, it's not the best looking game. I don't know, maybe the Xbox One version looks worse than the PS4 version, but it still looks pretty good. I like the environments, like I said before. The character models are generally good. It's not the greatest looking game. There's some frame rate drops. It's only a 30 frame per second game, and it drops sometimes. The game also uses these black bars on the top and bottom of the screen. Like, they're really big black bars, and apparently it was done to give the game like a cinematic presentation. I don't know. I think it probably has something to do with keeping the frame rate as high as possible, but it's weird at first. I got used to it, and it's that would be like a nitpick for me, but it's something I wouldn't want to see in more games. I think Dragon's Dogma used it as well. But yeah, other than that, I mean, I'm trying to think of other stuff in the gameplay. I mean, that's generally it. I mean, it feels kind of old school in a way in terms of like Resident Evil 4, because it does feel like Resident Evil 4 and 5 a lot of the time. I will say it's really enjoyable if you go in expecting that, like a survival action game. If you kind of want a game similar to Resident Evil 1 or 2, the really old school survival horror games, you're not going to find it here, I don't think. The atmosphere, I think, it starts out strong, but I think it's inconsistent, the atmosphere. And a lot of that has to depend on the environments you're in. Like, one environment, you're going through like a city, and the atmosphere is lacking there. But the village environment and the mansion environment, I think the atmosphere there was fantastic. It kind of depends with this game. And like I said, it's not a scary game, and it's very action heavy. I mean, this game, you're killing a lot of guys. It's just really tense and fun, in my opinion. Audio-wise, great use of sound effects. The audio design is, I think, top-notch. Voice acting's solid. There's nothing really to complain about in terms of audio. They did a really good job there. Controls, I've seen a lot of people complain about the controls with this game. Maybe they were maybe a bit hard to deal with at first, but I got used to them pretty quick. There's a good inventory system you can go into to look at all your weapons, and you have like your D-pad shortcuts that you can add weapons to quickly take them out. Aiming, I thought the aiming controls. At first, I was like kind of like, oh, maybe this was because of the Xbox One controller. I don't know, but at first I was like, oh, the aiming's kind of rough in this game. But again, improving your accuracy with these guns, that really helps out. The upgrades, I gotta say, are definitely beneficial in this game. So yeah, I don't know. I didn't really have a problem with the controls. And like I said before, it's a difficult game. A lot of your enjoyment of this game, I think, is going to depend on how tolerant you are to the difficulty. If you're looking for a breezy game, you're not going to find it here. You're going to die a lot. It's a tough game, but I appreciated the challenge with this because I thought the game was pretty much always enjoyable. So yeah, if it seems like your kind of thing, if you liked Resident Evil 4, I think there's a good chance you're going to dig this game. It took me around 15 hours to beat, so it's actually fairly lengthy, too. It's not a short game. Whether it's worth, in Canada, $70, in the States, $60, that's, I think, I think it would be worth it. I feel like if I had bought this for $60, $70, I wouldn't have been disappointed with that. Obviously, PC version's like a lot cheaper. You can get that for like $40. But again, it's hard to say. You really have to look at the gameplay and see if that's for sure something you want, like a survival action game, instead of something that's really built on horror. Because again, like I said, it's more of a tense game than a scary game, and I like it for the gameplay, not really the story or the atmosphere. But yeah, that about does it. That's The Evil Within. A surprising game for me, a game I enjoyed far more than I expected to, and I wouldn't be surprised if this makes my Game of the Year list. Probably not on the higher end, but it definitely, I think, will make an appearance there. I guess I seem to enjoy it more than most people do, but yeah, those are my thoughts, review on Evil Within. I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.